Today, we're talking about how to become the CFO of your business. And last week, actually, Todd didn't even know it, but with Todd coming in and being able to speak at a higher level, I thought, how good would it be to have somebody else come in and speak today at a higher level than what I talk about, or Nate or Chanel? So I brought in my CPA, Mr. Adam Schaefer. I asked him to come in here today. If you don't know Adam, you'll get to know Adam today. I did not prepare him for today. I said, you come in. What did I tell you, Adam?
Yep, you said it'll be some of you, and then you'll kind of pitch some things to me, and that's pretty much it. So here we are.
And the rest will be on them.
Yep.
And so what I wanted to do with Adam today and myself is I wanted to help your thinking of how financially you're running your companies. Like it or not, you're running your companies, you're running the financials of your companies. And some of you are doing a horrible, horrible job. And today, my goal is to help you do a little bit better. So I wanted to get you into my head. And then I also wanted to bring in my legal analysts in case I do something wrong or I have a question on how to do it right. So that is today's goal, is to help you do a little bit better at running your financials. And so here's my first question. I want to open this up. So my question is, to be the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of your business, what is required of you? That's my first question. To be the CFO of your business, what is required of you? And there could be multiple right answers here. I'm not sure, but I have one right answer, I know. And so let me open it up. I want to hear you guys talk out loud here. What is one of the right answers to be the CFO of your business? What is required of you?
Reviewing your expenses weekly, monthly, reviewing your books coming in, coming out all the time, tracking.
Yeah. So document, track, record. Okay. I'm looking for a very simple word right now. It's one word. I'm going to give you guys a hint. Finances. What about finances, Jared?
Making sure everything's paid, find out how much is going out, coming in. Yeah, just making sure everything.
It's one word. It's one word I'm looking for here. And I think it's the key to this question. To be the CFO of your business, what is required of you? Honey?
Is it budget?
Well, okay, budget is one of the right answers. What is required? Look in the chat right now. And this is why I started here. I'm glad I'm working on this with you guys. So let's look through the chats here. So we got document, track, record, know where your money's going, awareness, budgets, discipline, habits, projections. What is required to do all those things? Wisdom? No, I know a lot of dumb people who. What is required? Common sense, mindset, education, ways to keep records. Keep going. I am so glad I started. Organization's another one, not the right word I'm looking for. I'm glad I started with this question. Everyone's like, what the heck is he trying to get at here? So let me pause here. Let me pause. So put yourself in my seat. My job is to help change your mindset, which is normally the first thing. So we have to bring awareness, change mindset, provide a system, and then show strategies and tricks based off of a system. Let me say that again. My job is to provide awareness to help change your mindset. This is the process. You need to become aware of what you should do, change your mindset of how you think about it, provide a system for you to do, and then give you the tricks, the expert advice on that system. That's my 60 minutes with you every time. So when I talk about awareness and I talk about being the CFO, I'm sitting here trying to think, well, what do I need them to wake up and realize and become aware? What do they have to do that they're not currently doing? or doing well to be the CFO of their business? This is Think Time with Austin. Adam, putting you on the hot seat. What'd be your answer, Adam?
So the way you phrased the initial question, what's required of you to be the CFO of your company, I immediately went to time in my world.
He got it. Shit, I'm glad I brought him in.
There you go. There you go. So,
I thought he was going to crap all over himself there, everybody. That's
no,
great.
I save that for nights and weekends, but yeah.
It's time.
Mhm.
That's great. This is actually working just like I wanted to. Stump everybody. The expert comes in and hits it out of the park. That's
Yep.
great.
You can
So
check our email chain. We did not talk about this at all prior to this, sincerely. So, yeah, got lucky.
It's time. And the question becomes is how much time are you spending and investing into the financials of your company? Now, if you go back and you go look through all the chat, a lot of the times the chat, most of the time, that was the things in which you're doing with your time. It's one of the activities. But the first thing where I see most of us have a problem where we fall right on our faces, we're just not investing enough time. We need time to think. We need time to budget. We need time to account. We need times for the mindset aspect, education. This is time. This is investing time into the education of being your CFO. So we need time for all these things. You know, going back 20 plus years watching entrepreneurs work, they just try to think that if I make more money, I solve my money problems. It never works that way. It will never work that way. You could actually do better with less. So right now, as you're thinking of your financial world and you're thinking, hey, I want to have more. I want to buy rentals. I want to provide this for my family. I want to go here on vacation. I want to pay my debt off. And you're thinking your quick success is going to be sell more homes or sell more of something. It's not the case. You actually have to slow down and invest time into your financials. You have to think about, okay, what are these financials doing for my life? Where are they sending me? Am I on track? Am I off a track? If I make 300 a year and I spend 290, is that good or bad? Some people might say it's bad. Some people might say it's good. I'm not sure. But the first answer is time. Now, the second question would be is when's the best time to work on your financials? That would be my next question. I'm not going to open this up to everybody. But my next question is when is the best time? And for me, I found it in two places. I like to do it in the mornings. Okay, personally. Nate works with me on the financials. He gets text messages from me in the mornings with money. Here's where the money's at. It's kind of like before we get up and we get moving, I have an idea of what's coming in, what's going out, and where are we at. It's like looking at your gas gauge on your car before you go drive it in the morning. Or do you just always hop in your car and just drive and you don't know how much gas you have? So I like to do it in the mornings. It's quick in the mornings. It's like hopping on a scale. And then on Fridays, I like to do this on Fridays, is when I go deeper with the finances, when I really look at them and I move money around and I see where's everything at and I come up with the vision. So on Fridays, I go deeper. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I go quick in the mornings. It's quick. Be like I go to the gym on Fridays and on Monday through Thursday, I hop on the scale to see where I'm at. And that's how I spend time on my companies being the CFO. You have to invest time. If you don't invest time, you're not going to solve your financial issues. You'll end up making more and spending more, which is only really one good thing that happens when you do that is you get to the end of the year, if you happen to do your taxes. Adam, what % of entrepreneurs and business people are behind on their taxes?
I can't give you a percent, at least from what I have, because we're in the business of keeping them on top of things. I would say that I usually have a handful of phone calls every year from someone who has set up a small business or an LLC of some sort years and years ago, when we're talking 3 and 4 years behind, I'd probably have 4 or 5 of those phone calls a year from different business owners that are multiple years behind on taxes. And so it is a very real thing and a very real problem that we see. So
In my findings, I find between 50 and 60% of real estate agents are behind. 50 to 60%. And that's through talking to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people about money. So going back to the time, it quickly in the morning, it also helps set up my day. Here's what happens when you know you're broke in the morning. Do you know what you do during the day? You hustle a little bit more. Might sound bad. I'm okay to be broke. I feel good when I'm broke. It gives me motivation to go work. And then on Fridays, I invest. I'm going to tell you right now, clock out an hour every week. At the minimum, clock out an hour. Depending on how big your businesses are and how big you're growing, you might need 2. But you need at least 1 hour a week on a Friday to work on your financials. At the end of the month, or maybe the first Friday of the month, you might go 2. If you look at your business and you say, who was I talking with this yesterday? Corey. Corey asked a great question. He said, what would be the 3 things to time block if you were to time block? You remember what those were, Corey? Let me find you here, brother. Corey, can you tell us what those were? 3 things.
Yes, I can. One moment, please.
Yep. And I gave you 5. It's the first, second, and 5th one I gave you. These are the 3 things as a business owner that you need to time block. First is
lead gen,
lead gen. Second,
education,
5th,
financials.
financials. 4 and 5 were family and personal. That's why I didn't talk about those right now. So you need to time block for your finances. How many people do you know that time block for their finances? Almost 0, right? Almost 0. And then how much time do we spend a week trying to make money? Probably more than half. And so if you just look at a math equation and you say you invest 20 hours a week making money and you invest 0 really keeping track of it and organizing it and putting a vision behind it, how well do you think your financials are going to be after 10 years? Then that's the reason why people never get out of this industry. So we got to start keeping track of it. Now, I look at it like a puzzle. Okay, I love puzzles. And so I look at your financials like a puzzle. Okay, let's use the chat here. When you do a puzzle, what's the very first thing you do? I got 6 steps here for making and doing a puzzle. What's step 1 when you do a puzzle? Let me look at the chat here. Step 1, edges. Find the corners. Edges. Oh, you guys are wrong. Flip pieces over. Turn all the pieces over. Okay, we're getting closer. What do you do before you turn all the pieces over and you put together the edges? Oh, shit, you open the box, right? Yeah. And like, yeah. Right, Belinda? You can't put together the edges when the puzzle's still in the box. And so, okay, so then the first thing I do is I open up the box and I dump the pieces out. What's the next step then? After you get all the pieces out, then what do? I know this is very elementary, but I'm working your mind through a process right now. Flip the pieces over, step 2. All right, we've all done a puzzle. Open up the box, flip the pieces over. Then after we flip the pieces over, the next step is find the edges. Right? There's a process to doing a puzzle. I love watching people do puzzles who don't know how to do them. Like they open up the box, they turn the pieces out, and then they take one piece and they look at it and say, well, where does this go? You can't put this anywhere. That's not how this process works. Open up the box, turn over the pieces, find the edges. What happens after you find the edges? What's the fourth step? Yeah, we group them. What else? Come on, chat. What happens after you find all the edges? This is very important for today's training, by the way. You put the edges together. Good job, right? There's a process to this. You start putting the edges together. What happens after you put the edges together? What's the next step of the puzzle? So I got all the pieces turned over. I have the outline of my puzzle. Now what do you do? 2 more steps. I'm going to give you the last step on me. What's the next thing you do after you do the edges? You have all the pieces turned over. What's next? You refer back to the box, take a break. That boy, Freiberger, keep going. What's the next thing you would do once you have all the edges? If we can't do a puzzle, you can't do your finances, people. If we can't do the puzzle, we can't run our business and be the CFO. Attaboy, Alex. We start grouping them by colors. Those of you who've done puzzles, here's the trick. You then group them by colors. And then you start putting together the colors or the patterns. And then the last step is you repeat. I'm gonna say these 6 out loud again. It's a process. First is we open up the box. Second, we turn all the pieces over. Third, we grab all the edges. Fourth, we put the edges together. Fifth, we grab the colors and or the patterns, put those together, and then we repeat. That is the process to do a puzzle. It brings success. If you have me do a puzzle and we have one of you do the puzzle, I would bet if I had a process that I could do 1 to 2 times as many puzzles as you, maybe even 2 to 3 in the amount of time you do it, that I do it. Fair? Because I have a process on how I do it. No different than with your financials. What is your process? Now, this is not taught in entrepreneur school. People don't teach you how to deal with your money. That's why we have to work on it here together. We have to educate ourselves. So the first thing that I want to do when I get into my puzzle of my finances, my CFO hat, the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out what I spent. Right? Because you're not starting on day 1 with no spending. You've already spent money in your business. And step 1 is you got to figure out, what did I spend? That's step 1. If I were to ask you right now, and I want you to write this down on a scale from, let's go 0 to 100%. Okay, I want you to personally write down your number. Out of 100%, which means I know everything that's been spent in these 5 months and 14 days, what percent do you know and you've tracked what you've spent this year? Like, can you tell me to the penny what percent? You don't have to, you can put it in chat, you can write it down. I need you to identify to yourself, what percent do you know of what you've spent? And remember, you are the CFO of your business. What percent have you tracked? Are you aware of? That's step 1. That's like opening up the puzzle box. Adam, I'm going to bring you in here with the question.
All right.
What is the best way for a business owner to track their financials? Give me 3 ways.
Sure. So the simplest way is to have some sort of system in place, and there are apps for this. There's softwares that are out there that will bring in every single transaction once it's linked up to a bank account. That's probably the simplest and best way. Okay. Whether or not that makes sense for you will depend, of course, on your situation, how long you've been doing it. But what I find is once a client is able to set up a bank account with a system like this, where it's automatically pulling in those transactions, it's hard to undo that. And so that helps you to free up your other time to do what you need to do, while also making sure that you get to stay on top of your finances in a reasonable time. So
do you have a recommendation on an app or a system?
So For small businesses, yes, there's a couple depending on how involved you want to go. Everyone's probably heard of QuickBooks. QuickBooks Online is a platform. They are not cheap, but they are one of the better ones. Then there's also FreshBooks, which is another online platform, again, where you can link up your bank account so that you're not having to pull bank statements and look back to, oh, last November, which was, 6 months ago, I spent X number of dollars here and I have no idea what it was for. Okay. They can pull all those things in. And if you're spending that hour or two a week, like Austin mentioned, you're staying on top of things, you get everything organized in a much simpler and efficient manner. So
Love it. Step one, figure out what you spent. Right now is probably the best time of the year for you to do this. And the reason I say that is because every day that goes by, you're losing your write-offs because you're not going to remember what the heck you spent money on January 10th when it's December 15th. You're not going to remember. You're not going to remember. And the next thing you know, you're not going to write it off because you forgot it because your accounting sucks. And then Adam, what happens when you don't write things off?
if you don't write things off, you show additional income. When you show additional income, that means you get to pay more tax.
More tax. And my ultimate goal for you guys is to invest more money. That's the ultimate goal, is to help you invest so you can become financially free.
Mhm.
That's my ultimate goal. But most of you are going to tell me, Austin, I don't have any money to invest. Yes, because you're taking shitty care of it.
Mhm.
You're exactly right. You do not have extra money because you are not taking care of it.
Mhm.
So if we take care of it, it's magic. It's like magic. It's like, I now have extra money because I took care of it. So today will be the easiest day for you to do tracking and organizing what you've spent this year. It just gets harder and harder and harder every day.
Mhm.
This is a great rest week activity too. So you know that week that we don't train together? It's a great rest week activity. And in the beginning, you heard Adam say it, in the beginning, it's very hard. The more you neglect something, the harder it is to do in the beginning. If I didn't cut my grass for 4 months, it's going to be a pain in the butt to cut it that first time. But then every time it gets a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. Next thing you know, my grass looks like Augusta National Hills. It's flat. It's perfect. But it took time and it took time and it took time. I challenge you to take the time now. It's not going to be any easier than right now. Every day you go by, it gets a little harder. And for the half of you who haven't done your taxes, you need to be doing this shit either way. You haven't done your taxes for last year or the year before that. You got to get on this now. Like, stop delaying it. You got to get on it. At least get it organized. You don't have to give the stuff to the CPA, but at least go get it organized. You're going to have to do it eventually. It's either that or what happens if you don't pay your taxes, Adam? What's the next thing?
Oh, it's laughable, but in about 2 years, you'll get love letters from the IRS because they get something called a 1099 every year from your broker saying, hey, this person made 50,000 of commissions or 100,000 of commissions, and they don't have a tax return to match that up to. They know you made the money. So guess what? They're going to be looking for a tax return. They don't see a tax return. Guess what? They will guess how much you owe in tax and send you a bill. And
I
then,
love it.
yep,
What happens if I don't pay that?
If you don't pay that, you continue to accrue penalties and interest, and then they can eventually start levying, or issuing tax levies and seizing assets, garnishing bank accounts from payroll, those sorts of things. So it can get ugly.
So what he said is if you don't start today, that's where you're going to get to.
Mhm.
And that sounds shitty where he was just saying, I don't need anybody touching my money.
Right.
So let's be an adult, let's be a CFO, and let's start working on our money today. So step one, figure out what I spent. Step two, now I need to organize my expenses. Okay, I want to organize. And I'm going to share my screen here and show you how I did this over the years. You don't have to have some sophisticated system either. If that's your excuse right now, like I don't want to pay $90 a month for QuickBooks. I don't have the apps. You don't have to have some fancy system. Adam received this from me for many of years. This is what he got when he did my taxes. Remember this, Adam?
Oh yeah.
Yep. I still keep this. I train right on this. So
Yep.
I'm just pulling up an Excel sheet here for you because I'm not going to give you an excuse that I didn't keep track of what I spent.
Mhm.
So I'm going to show you my actually 2015. This is about 95% of the way here of my expenses in 2015. To let you guys know, back then I did 73 transactions, made about 350,000. I wanted to give you a reference of how much business I was doing and what was I making compared to what I spent. Okay. So here's the thing. When I talk about organizing expenses, what I need to make sure you're doing is writing the things off that you're supposed to write off. Because if you don't, you're spending extra money. You're giving it to the government because you are not either wise enough to know what is tax deductible, or two, you're not keeping track of them. And they're going in different buckets and you're losing money. It's kind of like your bucket has a whole bunch of holes in it. So here's my expenses. Only thing I want to do here with you is I want to show you how I organize them and how I wrote them off. Now, Adam's going to be kind enough to tell us all here what I spent out of my business account that's not tax deductible. Because there are some things on here. I think I cleaned it up pretty good, Adam, but there's possibly some things on here. Okay. What I want to show you here is there's categories and there's expenses with the categories. Do not get lost on how much they were. Do not get lost on how much it was. What I want to do, though, is I just want to show you that when I was doing 73 transactions, I was investing money in payroll to give me back my time. I like to stay married and happy. Yeah, I had parties. You guys know when we talk about lead generation, I talk about having 2 parties a year. That's module 4 of our agent success program. 2 parties a year. I wrote $5,000 off worth of parties. Pop buys when I go see my clients, electronic subscriptions, health insurance, dental insurance. Now, Adam, is dental insurance, is that something I can write off?
So under tax rules for an S corporation shareholder, actually, yes, it is.
Hey.
So, yep.
Okay. Okay, let's keep moving. Gift cards. Are you writing off your gift cards? Adam, what's the limit on a gift card that you can purchase?
So by the book, $25 per recipient per year is the maximum gift you can give and have it be deductible for tax purposes. Okay.
Okay, Adam, I'll just buy a shit ton of $25
That's
gift
right.
cards then.
That's right. Yep.
You see, hang on, time out. Do you see how that relationship works there?
Mhm.
You tell me how to stay legal,
Yep.
and I'll stay legal.
Right.
You don't buy one $500 gift card because you're not educated and then complain to Adam that he only lets you write off $25 of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Become a little smarter. Understand the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Being the CFO takes time. You have to put knowledge or wisdom, as I believe Freiberger put earlier in the chat, you have to be putting wisdom in so you understand the rules of the game. You're allowed to write off a $25 gift card. If you're buying gift cards over $25 right now, you're losing money. Now, he did also say it's per one client, one time a year. I'll let that be on him.
Right.
He's the bad guy right now, right?
Yep. Yep.
Keep moving.
Again, the point here, and I want to emphasize, the way I view my job, it is not my job to keep you from deductions. It is my job to inform you on how to get them. Okay. And so that's why I answered Austin's question the way that I did. So
love it. Thank you, Adam. Let's keep moving. Internet. So, Adam, am I allowed to write off my home internet?
So if you have a home office that you use, there is nothing wrong with taking a reasonable percentage of your internet as a deduction.
Okay. And what would be the only reason why I would not be allowed to have a home office?
If you were to have a primary office location that you are not doing work, that is doing work at that other location more so than your home office, or if you do not use the home office exclusively for business use. So, for example, if you have a room that technically has a bed in it, the by the book answer is, well, that's a bedroom that's not exclusively for business use. Okay. So those are a couple areas that can get you into trouble there.
Yeah. So most of you guys have home offices is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's more here. I didn't write off everything at home. I wrote off the internet.
Mhm.
Next, supplies. Miscellaneous stuff that you're buying, all the Amazon stuff, the Costco trips, the Walmart trips, the pens, the papers. Make sure to capture all that. Postage, CPA, auto. I'm not going to get into how to write all these off. That's your CPA's job.
Mhm.
Are you collecting all this and organizing it? Remember, step 2 is organizing expenses. Cell phone, business travel, education, postcards, photo, video, brochure, MLS dues, printing, advertising, airs and emission, color copies, repairs, meals and business.
Mhm.
Because I organize my expenses, I am now able to do the next thing. I'm going to go into 2026. Some of you guys have seen this. I'm going to zoom in here. 2026, I closed 88 transactions, about 400,000 in income. And for those of you who are wondering why I made so little and I sold so much, it's because I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where real estate is really cheap here. Great place to buy rental properties in the future once you get your money right. You just let me know and I'll show you how to do it. Yeah. So the next thing I do is I compare year over year. And when I do this, as I'm sitting down as a CFO and I'm like, okay, here's my 2016 expenses. What happened? And anything that's more than about 10%, I identify in red or green. This is key. Anything more than 10% high or low, I identify in red or green. As you can see, my payroll went up. That's red. Red doesn't mean bad. Red just means it cost me more money. Parties were the same. Everything was the same. Health insurance went up. Stager went up. As you see, I'm not going to go through each one of these one by one, but what I'm doing is identifying year over year as the CFO, which ones went up and which ones went down. And as you see, I made more money, sold more houses, and none of my expenses really went down. I made more money and I spent more money. Remember I told you the more you make, not necessarily the more you're going to make. I made another $50,000 that year. I spent another $26,000 to make 50, and I paid taxes on 25% of that 24 grand. So I netted maybe 10,000 out of the 50,000. See, we all believe the more you make, the more you're going to have. That's not going to be the case. You have to focus on, okay, how do I lower my expenses? Next piece is my tax optimization. When I look at my expenses here, let me go to 2017 here. When I look at my expenses, what I'm asking myself is, how do I optimize my taxes based off of my expenses? And an easy way to do that is to make sure you have everything accounted for. Year over year, over year, over year. It's a battle. I fight every year to make sure I have things accounted for. Adam, what is the number 1 or number 2 things that most business owners miss on their taxes due to lack of accounting?
I would say a lot of the little expenses, just because they don't track them, is really what it comes down to. As far as general expense types, they won't always think about that home office, or if they have their own business, they normally don't think about auto mileage or the cell phone reimbursement or setting up a retirement plan, which we don't have to get into that, but those are the big ones that someone just running their business isn't going to know about from just talking to their friends. So
Say that first answer again.
the little stuff.
Yeah. The little stuff. And the little stuff, what I find, adds up to big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nuisance to track the little stuff. It really is. You're like, well, I love sitting down with a millionaire and going out to lunch or something, and they pay with cash. And I'm like, you just lost money. He's like, what are you talking about? I go, well, you could write that off. Well, it's just $20, Austin. And then what I do is I say, okay, well, $20, great. Well, let's just pull out our little calculator right now. They're like, Jesus, Austin, I got millions of dollars. Okay, well, that's fine. So let's take $20 and you go out to lunch how many times a week? Let's say 3 times. Okay, $20 times, this is what I personally do, just to let you know, times 3. So you're spending $60 times, you're doing that 52 weeks a year. That's $3,000. Doesn't seem like much, right? It's three grand. It's a vacation, but it's 3 grand. Okay. And how old's your youngest kid? I'd ask them. They'd say maybe a year or 2. Okay. So you're going to do this for 17 years with non-compounding interest. Okay. If I times that by your tax rate, you guaranteed lost $14,000, guaranteed, if you track like this, which is with compounding interest. If I figure out a way to use this, probably when you put it this way on your calculator, it probably compounds it somehow. When you do that, it probably equals 1 year of college. It equals 3 investment properties. It equals. So for everybody here that's saying, well, I don't have the money, it's not that you don't have the money, it's that we're not taking good enough care of what we have. The money's there. So tax optimization, the next piece here. I want to look, I'm going to share my screen again. I want to look at my expenses and I want to identify, let me come back to here, 15. Let's keep this one easy. I want to identify which one of these I spent money on and which one of these are investments in my business. Okay, this is huge. Me and Nate spend a lot of money on stuff, which means it was a one-off expense. It was bad. It's not for our future. The only thing we've learned was wisdom. When you spend money, when you're putting money out there for your business, I want you to identify when you're done, was this an investment or an expense? Did you actually invest that money and get something out of it other than learning what not to do? It's something I do all the time with my money. I look at it and I say, was this an investment or was this spending money? You can think right now what you spend money on. It's like, well, this ain't getting me anything. I just continuously spend this money. Or is this an investment? Look at my auto. My auto was $9,600 a month. You know why? Because I bought a Mercedes. Stupid. Bought a Mercedes. Was that Mercedes an investment or a spend? Well, I had to have some sort of car. So part of that could have been an investment into my business to drive around. But the other part of that could have been spending. Could have just been spent. $4,000, $5,000, that was just spent money. Just because you wanted to drive a Mercedes. Now, looking at this, I run pretty lean with what I do. But everything I look at, it's like, is this an investment or did I spend? It's the next step of the puzzle. Did I invest? Did I spend? And I want you to go through all of your expenses and identify that. Me and Nate once bought for our team an add-on that we had a team website. It was $400 a month and we never used it. It was a pain in the ass, actually. The only thing that thing became was a write-off and a learning lesson. We spent that money. Don't do that again. Mm-hmm. And so as I go through my money, what I'm looking at is separating what did I spend my money on and what did I invest? And then we can start to understand that I have a tendency to spend money in this category. I have a tendency to invest in this category. Great example, payroll. Let me go back to 2017. I invest in my payroll. That investment gets me back my time. It allows me to produce more. Yeah? There's things down here that I spent money. See these repairs? Oh shit, that was a bad year, Adam. $7,500 in repairs. That was spending money. Look, the year before that was $2,000. What is that? That is money that I spent to solve other people's problems and hope to get to closing. You ever buy someone a washer and dryer? You ever fix the roof because it leaks and the seller doesn't want to do that? That was money that I spent. I didn't like that. I said, we can't do that anymore. That's a vacation out of my family because my negotiation skills weren't that high. Did you hopefully you heard what I said there? If you're buying someone's washer and dryer, it's probably because your negotiation skills aren't that high. It's not because you had to do it to put the deal together.
Mhm.
It's because you spent the money because it was an easier route for you than to negotiate with the buyer or seller or the buyer's agent or whoever to go fix that problem. That's not your problem. That was money I spent, so I identified it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, now let me show you the next thing here. We want to reduce expenses. That's my next one. I'm always reducing my expenses. Constant. I sent Nate a text message this morning. Back to reducing expenses. Constantly. Always reducing expenses. Nothing ever gets away in my book. We always look at it. We're always trying to reduce them. Okay. It doesn't mean you have to reduce, but I need your mindset to be around my job as a CFO is to keep my expenses as low as possible. For those of you who ran through our teams training program, module 5 was all about finances for our team, which is we have a low expense model. Why? Because I like what's called profit. I love profit. Love it. Profit gives me freedom. Makes me happy. Makes me want to work. Well, what takes away my profit? My expenses take away my profit.
Mhm.
So what I want you to do after you know what your numbers are, let's say you just did your taxes today. Like you just did them for last year. Congratulations. You now have what you spent in 2023. I don't care if it's May 14th today. I don't care. You have to be responsible to do the work still. So here's what I want you to do. If you spent $38,000 on payroll last year, then what do you want to spend on it this year? Do you want it to be higher or lower? Do you have a reason? Do you actually have a reason on why you're running your company financially this way? Does it need to be higher? Does it need to be lower? If you're going to list more homes this year, let me see you guys here. If you're going to list more homes this year, do you think your expenses for listing should go up? Did you account for that? Basic stuff, right? If you're going to sell more houses this year, is your expenses going to go up this year? Yes. Have you accounted for that? Wow. I want you to think ahead just a little bit further than you're currently thinking. What do I want my business to look like? I scaled my business down. I went from 88 back down to 60. I scaled it down. Well, when you scale it down, guess what? You also need to scale down your expenses. So that's why I could show you that my payroll was going to be less. I knew I was scaling my business down. I had a business plan. You know what the CFO's job is? It's to have a plan of where the money's going to go. We're getting some like aha moments here, I hope.
Mhm.
Okay, parties. Why did my party estimate go down? Open up your mic if, let me hear a couple reasons. Why did my parties go down here? And the answer wasn't, I am going to have more parties or less parties. I still had 2 parties. Why did my expenses go down? Alex?
You found a better way to make them affordable?
Oh, how did I do that? Keith, stay on. How would I do that?
You could have lenders, title reps, outside
I
sources.
called Maria, say, hey, Maria, would you want to sponsor this party? I got 200 kick-ass clients here. A third of them happen to be yours. Would you want to participate in my party? I'm bringing them all together. I'm doing all the work. Just bring your banner, bring yourself, have a smile, and bring a little bit of money because this stuff's not free to do this. I started to think, how do I reduce my expenses? And to think I had to invest time. It takes time to think. You have to slow down. That's why I want you to have Fridays. Spend some time just thinking, how could I reduce expenses? Well, I guess I could spend less. I also could maybe create a win-win with someone I like to say, hey, you want to kick butt with me at this party? Maybe it cost you $1,000. Should cost you $5 if you did it all by yourself. And then you'd have 40 hours too. You can just piggyback off me, make money with me. So I started to innovate and think about things a little differently. Let's keep going here. My pop buys were good. I was on track. I knew how many I did. I knew how much they were going to be. Electronic subscriptions, the same. Health insurance. The government didn't rate me this year on health insurance. That's great. Internet was the same. Stager was the same. My expenses started to become the same because my business was getting predictable. I knew that if I had 30 listings and the stager charges 200, that would be 6,000. You see how I can just plan ahead. If I have this many, if I'm going to sell, let me get into numbers here with you. If I'm going to sell 50 homes, okay, if I'm going to sell 50 homes, and half of those are going to be buyers and half of those are going to be sellers, well, then half of those sellers are probably going to require photography, staging, and I know how much it costs for those activities, for that work. And then that goes into your budget. 25 times 200 is 5,000. That's what goes into my staging is 5,000. That's my budget for the year based off of selling 25 listings. Planning ahead, thinking ahead, being the CFO, it takes time. Let's keep running through these expenses here. Okay, auto went up. I didn't show you last year, but my auto went up to 13,000. Why? Because fixing a Mercedes is expensive when it gets 100,000 miles. I didn't think about that back here when it was 9,600. I thought it was under control. You got to think through that stuff. Cell phone was the same. Business travel. My business travel and education. Look, we went from investing $8,100 in business travel, which is traveling normally to a conference or something, to investing $23,000 in myself. And that's a significant increase and a significant part of my expenses. If you want to know why I'm here today and one of the reasons why you're listening to me talk, it's because of that column right there. I invested time and money into my education. And then I failed like hell. A lot of people laughed at me as I kept messing stuff up, but I kept learning from it and failing and then tracking and then learning and educating and failing and tracking and learning. Okay, let's stay back over here. Let's look and see if anything else is changing. Looks like everything's pretty much the same. You remember that $7,500 that I said I got smacked in the face and I spent? I made a promise to myself and my family that I would no longer buy other people washer and dryers. And then I'd buy one for my own family. And so I got my expense down to $3,000. I created a budget. And I said, I'm only going to invest $3,000 to fix other people's problems this year. See you guys here. I'm going to invest $3,000 this year to fix other people's problems. I challenge you to write down a number right now on how much you're going to invest to fix other people's problems. Write down a number. It could be zero, it could be 10 grand. I'm not judging you. Write down a number. And if you write down zero, you might want to think twice about zero because it could be in your best interest to write down 1,000. Write down a number. How much money are you going to spend or invest into fixing other people's problems? And here's what you do. You take that number and you put it up in front of your face. And when you're dealing with the real estate deal, and your first thing is to say, God, I guess I could just fix the drain. They're all complaining about a loose toilet. You know, I could fix that for 50 to 80 bucks. You look at your budget and you say, am I going to use this one right here? Am I using my budget to fix this one? Because this is all I get. Because what I believe happened to me at $7,500, I said, well, I'll just pay for this one. I won't do it again. And then the next deal came, and then the next deal came, and then the next deal came. And next thing you know, it never ended. $7,500 later. That's a mortgage payment. Or was before 8% interest rates and 40% inflation. Yeah, let's finish this up here. Let's land this one. Last thing I want to show you here. As you're tracking your year, what I want you to do is I want you to have an estimate of what you believe you would spend and invest this year into your company. You're going to have an estimate based off of last year's actuals. And last year's actuals, when you turn them into your CPA, is what they use to write off for your taxes. So when I give Adam my expenses, That's my actual expenses for 2023. He puts a stamp on it. That's my expenses, which happens to be the same thing that I use to estimate what I want to do next year. And then what I do is I give myself a mid-year actual to see where I'm at. Where am I at based off of my estimates? And life can throw you curveballs within the year. You know, starting up a new company, having 8.5% interest rates at Q4 of the last year could throw you curveballs. You just never know what's going to happen. But being the CFO, you have to plan on what could happen if you were successful. And so mid-year, I will pause and stop and say, where am I at? Look, payroll 38, estimate 17. I'm right on track. Party 6,000. I'm 1,500 in. Right on track. Pop buys, I'm a little more than half. Slow down a little bit on the pop buys. Or maybe I got a whole closet full of stuff that I'm ready to give out. I have the inventory now. And I can go through each one of this list and look and to say, where am I at with my expenses? Am I off? Am I wrong? Am I right? Where am I at? Look at, oh shit, this is embarrassing. Here's this one again. Look at this. 2,500 estimate. Look, halfway through the year, I'm at $5,300. What happened? What happened, Austin? You know what Austin didn't do? I didn't do what I told you to do, which is put your number in front of your face. That way, when you're dealing with it, you can look at the number that you said. Put it right in front of your face. Austin, you said 2,500. You just put a roof on the house for 5,000. Come on. How's that going to run? If you do that with all of your expenses, how well are you going to do on your business? And so after you scroll through all these, here's what I can tell you. Halfway through the year, I was at 54,000. My estimate was 101. I'm pretty proud of myself that year halfway through. Some are a little higher, some might be a little lower. But what I'm doing is I'm keeping track of what I'm spending. Remember, it's like a puzzle. What's the process here, guys? First process is, what did I spend? What did you spend from January 1st this year till today? Step one, use the apps, track it, QuickBooks, whatever you need to do. Second, get the expenses organized. If you have 400 Amazon bills, put them all in one bucket, and that way you can see Amazon, 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 Amazon. Organize it so we can see what it actually is. Next, make sure we're optimizing our taxes. Understand what you can write off and what you can't. You might be buying things that you think you're writing off and you're not. You can't. Next, separate between investing and spending. What have you spent money on this year and what have you invested in? I can promise you, if you invest for the next 5 years in your business, it will be astronomically different than if you spend money. And I've spent some bad money in my lifetime. I've just showed you some of it. Some of it's embarrassing when I see it again. Okay? Separate what you invest in with what you spend. Next, reduce expenses. Always reduce your expenses. Reduce, reduce, reduce. And sometimes you just need to spend time to figure out what could you reduce if you made that decision. Like, do you have a list of things to reduce? I'll tell you this, I always, when I did my taxes and I had my list of what I spent the money on, I would give it to 5 people that were very close to me, and I'd say, take 12.5% off of this list. Some of you guys have heard me say that in the past. Take 12.5% out of all of my expenses, take 12.5% off. And let the closest people who care about you tell you maybe how to do it. And what happens is it gets your mind thinking a little different. Like, well, you don't have to have that Mercedes anymore, right, Austin? Like, oh, I didn't think about that. Did you just put a new transmission in that? Like, yeah, I did. That was horrible. Maybe you get rid of it. Last one here. The very final piece of this that I have not said yet is, once you do all this, you'll be able to review a P&L. When you get in control of your business and you do all this work, every month, you'll be able to look at a P&L for the month prior. to say, was I on track or was I off track? How well did we do this month? And what you can do is you can make quick pivots and adjustments during the month. Quick pivots and adjustments on everything that comes out. And it's not like, oh shit, I didn't realize I was still paying for that 11 months later. Which we all have those expenses. They all hide. So the last piece would be to review a P&L. And I can tell you for me, I'd like to do it the second week of the month. Sometimes it's the third week. I'd like to do it the second week. Sometimes it's the third week. And when I do that, I go in there and say, what no longer needs to be here? What's our one-off expenses? How much money did we truly bring in? And I can do something. I want to end with this word. It's the word Tony Robbins taught me. Is you can start to anticipate where your financials are going to be. Okay. And if you can anticipate, you can plan for it. And if you plan for it, you can actually pull it off. Money's a tough thing, everybody. Money is very tough to work on. And today I wanted to give you the outline. I wanted to talk with you about being aware, about your mindset, about a process. Okay. And then help show you the guide. Adam brought some nuggets today. Thank you, Adam, by the way.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. He brought some nuggets on how to keep us legal and to keep us on track and doing the right way, the right thing, and how to make sure when you get to your CPA, it's not a cluster. So take today, grab your notes, make a commitment by the end of rest week, by the end of this month's rest week, that you will invest time into your finances. Please do that for me. Do it for everybody else. If you do that, as we continue to build and stack and build and stack, you'll see the growth financially. If not, you'll be here 2 years later with the same financial problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.
Thanks.
See you, everyone.